Now, over in Japan, at least 19 people are killed and 26 injured in a stabbing spree at a facility for disabled people.
Charles Cullen was a critical care nurse who admits to killing up to 40 people.
Jeannie Jones, the pediatric nurse turned convicted baby killer, has pleaded guilty to another murder charge.
In 2016, Satoshi Uematsu, a Japanese caregiver, fatally harmed 19 disabled people and injured 25 more at the facility where he was employed. He justified the attack by claiming these individuals had no purpose in life. Months prior to the incident, he wrote a letter to the parliament saying he dreamed of a world where the disabled can be euthanized, and he claimed that he had to commit the attack for the sake of the society. This isn't the first time in history someone gave themselves the power to play God. And unfortunately, it probably won't be the last. In this video, we will uncover the psychology behind this dangerous mindset. What makes someone think they have the right to play God? We will explore what drives individuals to believe they have the authority to control the fundamental human rights and the moral justifications people use to commit such horrified acts. The most common reason for wanting to play God is narcissism. People with these traits genuinely believe that they're better, smarter, and more important than everyone else. They think they're uniquely qualified to make decisions for other people, even decisions about life and death. But this isn't just about individuals doing awful things. It can show up in ways that seem more subtle at first, like in science and technology. For example, scientists now have the ability to edit genes to eliminate inherited diseases or alter physical traits with the CRISPR technology. Of course, at first, it was a total game changer for families dealing with genetic diseases. It finally gave them hope to cure illnesses that had been in their families for generations. However, the same technology quickly blurs ethical lines because it can be used not just to prevent illness, but to enhance physical traits, intelligence, or appearance. Suddenly, we're not just talking about fixing health problems, we're talking about designing people. And guess who can afford these enhancements? The wealthy. So, now you got a world where rich families are literally creating kids who are stronger, smarter, better looking, and healthier than everyone else. It's like real-life Hunger Games or Gattaca. The gap between the rich and everyone else? It gets even wider. In a more depressing scenario, governments that have this technology can create an army of designer babies with edited traits, engineered for enhanced strength, intelligence, obedience, or aggression to serve specific political or military agendas. This could lead to a new form of eugenics, where entire populations are manipulated to fit the ideals of those in power, eroding individuality and basic human rights. So how does narcissism fit into the picture? Whether it's an individual, a corporation, or even a government, narcissism fuels the beliefs that they have the right to control and perfect life itself. People with these traits often chase perfection, not just in themselves, but in their kids, their society, their world. And with tools like CRISPR, they feel entitled to step over the line and mess with the very code of life. But where do we draw the line between improving life and controlling it? Now, let me ask you this. If you had the power to control life itself, would you use it? If you could be God for a day, what would you do? Imagine having the ability to decide who lives, who thrives, and who falls behind. Would you resist the urge to play God, or would you be tempted to shape the world in your image? For some people, this temptation isn't fiction, it's reality. Some individuals have a deep need to exert control over others or their environment, finding satisfaction in influencing outcomes that are typically beyond human authority, like life and death. The famous Stanford prison experiment showed how quickly individuals in positions of power can abuse that authority, crossing ethical lines and developing a sense of superiority, almost like they see themselves as gods. What's even more shocking is that many of these crimes are committed by people you'd least expect, nurses, caregivers, and others in trusted roles. The very people who are supposed to protect and care for the vulnerable sometimes exploit that power, like the case of Satoshi Uematsu in the beginning of this video. When someone consistently has control over others, especially those who are defenseless, it can create a false sense of superiority. They start to believe they know what's best for others. For caregivers, having control over someone's medication, routines, or overall well-being can morph from responsibility into a desire to dominate. Over time, those in power may start to see vulnerable individuals as less than human, as burdens or problems that need solving. They might rationalize their harmful actions by convincing themselves they're doing something good or merciful. Take Charles Cullen, for example, a nurse who confessed to killing at least 40 patients during his 16-year career. When questioned about his motives, he said, "I thought that people weren't suffering anymore. So, in a sense, I thought I was helping." Similarly, Janine Jones, a pediatric nurse from Texas convicted of murdering multiple infants, rationalized her actions by saying they were going to die anyway. I was just helping them along. And if you ever look into it, you'd shockingly realize that the list goes on and on. So, what happens when narcissism collides with power and the overwhelming need to control? History shows us that on a much larger scale, this dangerous mix can lead to catastrophic consequences for entire nations and even the world. Stalin labeled his victims as enemies of the people, claiming the mass executions and forced famines were essential to project the revolution and secure the future of the Soviet Union. He convinced his followers that any dissent was dangerous, creating an environment where fear and loyalty were deeply intertwined. Pol Pot took this a step further. In his vision of a perfect, classless society, anyone who was educated, wore glasses, or spoke a foreign language became a target. He framed this as a necessary purification to return Cambodia to its pure roots. His followers were so indoctrinated that many believed they were helping build a better world, even as they participated in devastating consequences for many lives. And then there's Hitler, whose narcissistic belief in the Aryan race as superior led to one of history's most horrific genocides. Through relentless propaganda, he convinced millions that Jews, Roma, disabled individuals, and others were subhuman and responsible for Germany's struggles. The Holocaust wasn't just about personal hatred. It was a systematic, state-sponsored effort to play God and decide who deserved to exist. Stalin, Pol Pot, and Hitler believed they were destined to reshape society according to their twisted ideals. Their narcissism fueled a belief in their own superiority, convincing them that they alone had the right to decide the fate of millions. But it wasn't just about personal ego. It was about exerting total control over people's lives, thoughts, and even their very existence. As you can see, when humans have the power, the technology, the possibility to play God, it is hard to resist the temptation to shape the world to your idealism. But just because we can, doesn't mean we have the right to do so. So, let me ask you this question again. If you could have a day being God, what would you do?